feel like I've hit a wall. This is not what people talk about, right? We don't talk about this on spiritual journeys. We don't talk about hitting the wall. We don't talk about it. We want to show how on fire we are for God, and then we disappear and hide our hands, and everybody's wondering what happened. Like, you were so on fire for God. Where did it go? What happened? And we don't talk about the reality of the spiritual walk, is that there's a point where we all hit a wall. I know that's not what we want to talk about. I know that's not pretty. It's not like, oh, faith, God's going to do. No, there's a point that, y'all, we hit a wall. And I was reading comments of people that were saying, like, I feel like God showed me something and I felt like I was so close and then it didn't happen. I just feel like God doesn't like me. God is not with me. I just don't understand it. And I remember looking at that, and the next day I was talking to someone and that same thought popped up, and I'm like, man, the enemy is so deceptive that he would sow that seed of doubt right before I would then think of that comment as someone is encouraging me to continue to push forward and continue to run the race because I'm so close. And I'm like, I don't know if I feel as close as you are saying that I am. And I think of the comment that I happened to see yesterday when I was looking at something different. It's like, wow. I wonder why that happened. And a friend of mine later on that same day reaches out and she sends me a message about a young woman who she worked with, was struggling. There was somebody on her job that was not being the kindest to her, and she wanted to quit because of this person. And my friend was like, no, don't do it. Don't quit. Don't let a person take you off your post. And the young lady, I think maybe a week later, decided to leave the job. My friend was like, man, she was disappointed that it happened. And then probably a couple weeks later, HR comes in, and she knew that when our HR came in, something was going to happen. And the very woman that the woman a couple weeks before left the job for was fired. She had only stayed a couple more weeks. She had only stayed. I was watching another story of another person that they were on YouTube, and they were so close to getting monetized. And what happened was, it just felt like they were doing all that they knew to do. And it was like so frustrating for them that they decided to quit. They decided to just stop. And when they came back to YouTube, they had ended up getting married and decided to go back to YouTube as a unit. They found out that when you get monetized, you have to make like $100 before in advertisements before you get your first paycheck from your account. I think that's how it is. And she was like trying to earn this $100 and wasn't coming fast enough. It was like, what is happening? She gave up and she was only $3 away. Family, I say these stories to you guys because I'm sure you guys can think of other stories. I have another story, Lord. It just came to me. Y'all, I was in a process. I was trying to be a part of this organization, and I really felt strongly about, at some point, my family wasn't okay with me being a part of this organization, and I needed my family support to even get through this process. So, I was there, and I was like, at some point, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to give up because this is too much. Y'all, I'm in college at that time, and like one failed grade means a whole lot more in college because you don't have as many tests or exams. And I had failed a math exam. I'll never forget it. And failed something else in another class. And I'm not the failing type of student. That wasn't my feng shui. Okay. And I remember giving up. Remember everybody there like, no, don't do it. You're so close. I'm like, what is close? I don't know. This feels like this is lasting forever. I've already done this for like 2 or 3 weeks now. Like, how close is close? I was a week away. I'm thankful now that I didn't. Okay, but I was a week away. And y'all, I say all this to say that in this time, God has called me to do some things I would have never done. I mean, the sacrifices, some of the things that he's, told me to do. If I could just, I literally, if I sat here for the next 5 minutes, I probably can't tell you everything that he's called me to do as far as, but just, I can't, there's a lot that God's called me to do. I don't feel led to share, but God has called me to do a lot. And there are times in this walk of obedience where you feel lonely because you're not really, you're doing this, and people are not called to what you're called to, right? Not every I remember being, a younger in my faith and feeling like everybody needed to do things my way. Like, you need to stop this and do that. And because I couldn't do it anymore, no one could do it. At this point in my life, that is not my conviction. God calls us to different things. Obviously, there are things that are written in scripture that we are not to do. Okay. That's not debatable. It is what it is. Now, you do it or you don't. That's on you and your relationship with God. I will say this: the more obedient you are, the more you can hear God, right? The more you can understand. When I've talked to people and they're like, well, God told me this and God told me that. No, you're not hearing God. You're hearing you. But because you're still in world, and there are promptings that you think make sense to you and would be like God, you're saying it's God. God don't need to make sense to you. God don't need to make sense to me. His ways are higher than my ways. His thoughts are higher than my thoughts. So a lot of times, the way I know it's God is because it don't make sense to me. It don't. And so in this time, um, there's things he's asked me to throw away, things give away, walk away from, just all the things, y'all. And there are times where you would think that sometimes with obedience, you're being obedient, you're doing what God called you to do. And I think a lot of people like glorify, like, oh, it's amazing, you're going to be obedient, and it's amazing. And the reality of it is amazing because you have a peace that surpasses all understanding. Like, you do, like, there's a peace that I've become addicted to, y'all. I'm not gonna lie to you. That peace, I chase it like it's my favorite cupcake. I mean, the peace that comes with following God and doing what He's called me to do and being obedient, it surpasses anything I've ever done in my life. I promise you that, because I feel like I'm at one with God. I feel like He hears me. I hear Him. That connection, there's nothing. I'm sorry. There's nothing like it. There's nothing on planet Earth like it. Nothing. All right. So let me start there. But when you are being obedient, we assume that obedience means it's going to feel good, and it's not. Obedience doesn't feel good to flesh, because when we're obedient, we want the ice cream, the cupcakes, the fireworks, all the things. But sometimes obedience means tears. Sometimes obedience means disappointing somebody you wanted to please. Sometimes obedience requires you to say no to people you don't like saying no to. Sometimes obedience means I got to set boundaries in relationships that I've never had to set boundaries in, or I don't like setting boundaries in, or I don't know how to set boundaries in. Sometimes obedience requires you to walk away from things you were comfortable in but had no peace in. Sometimes obedience is saying no to something you want, but deep down inside it isn't God. Sometimes obedience doesn't make sense at all. And when you do it, you feel like, well, what was that? Why did I have to do this? And I'm here to tell you, sometimes you don't ever really know. Sometimes you do. I was told in this process to let go of a friendship. Um, and that was hard. But after I did what I felt like God had called me to do, things were revealed. And I realized what I was holding on to, in short, was not good for me on any level. The things I found out behind closed doors that God had revealed to me, yeah, God knew better than I did what was happening. And so in the moment of the obedience, y'all, I'm over here fighting with myself. Like, no, like, I don't want to, you can be in your, I don't know anybody else is like this, but you can be, oh, loyal to the soil. Okay, cool. You're in a situation and God is calling you out, and you're battling with you because you like being seen as somebody that some people can depend on. You like being seen as somebody that's loyal to a fault. You like that. That's something you like people saying about you. And so in this instance, family, I'm dealing with that. I'm like, I don't want to not do what I say I'm going to do. I don't want to appear to be shifty or inconsistent. That's not any characteristic I want to be descriptive of me in any instance. And this situation called for me to do that because I was battling with myself. I was battling with myself because I didn't want to disappoint. I didn't want to be seen that way, but God was calling me to be seen that way. Not really, honestly. He actually called me out. And I was just kind of like, well, maybe I could do one. Then God was like, no. Maybe I can, no. Do it, no. But my wanting to be seen as in a certain light because of the character of woman I want to be in relationships, the character of a friend or a partner in any sense. Like I want to show up as that, right? And so in this, I'm like struggling with myself and battling, and that's causing me to come across as being blown and tossed by the wind, right? So anywho, situation ends. And it was an obedient step, and I felt terrible. Had to call a friend of mine I trust her spiritual leadership. And y'all, I'm telling you guys now, caveat, you have to have friends that have an ear to God. Some of y'all be listening to your friends, and your friends know just as much as you, don't have no ear to God. I'm not saying they say, I am a God and I hear God. No, somebody that has a real relationship with God. We know the difference. You can feel the anointing. We know, family. I can listen to people for 5 minutes and know, okay, this person is talking to God. This person has a relationship with God. It's evident. It's very, very evident when someone has a real relationship with God and the fruit is fruiting. Okay? We know. So anywho, I called a friend of mine that day, and she was hearing me, and she was saying something that God was telling me. She was like, I feel that God is saying that there's things you don't know.